Okay, some other items we have here in QuickBooks is we're gonna have now customers. We want to set up 2 customers and want to set up 2 vendors. And if you go, there are many, you'll learn through QuickBooks, there are at least 2 to 3 times to do everything. And I'm not gonna say there's any right way how to do it. It's whatever is easier, shorter for you. There are also some wrong ways to get it to do things, but there are several ways to do it correctly. So first of all, as you look across the top here, you have company, customers, and vendors. So this is called the menu bar, or it's the ribbon on the top. There's also a home screen. Let's see if we open up open Windows list. Second here. Oh, this is the wrong window. So I have this thing blocking me. Let's close this. Okay, so the first time you go into QuickBooks, I'm not remembering anything. This is the home screen. When you open the software for the first time, here's a home screen. And you have here a section for vendors, you have a section for customers, you have a section for employees. 3 levels. I'm looking at a phone. Okay, it seems like it's filling up the screen. I believe it's okay. Vendors, customers, and employees. So the common entries you do for vendors are either you're going to enter a bill that he's going to send you something. So let's, for example, we have a business, so we have a cafeteria. We bought some food for the cafeteria. So I'm going to enter a bill, and the vendor will be let's say Nasharia. And we're going to right now do a quick add. Setup would actually give you, we'll do setup. Quick add, we'll just add the name without any other information. But if you want at the same time, set up that vendor with quick on setup, and you have a similar interface that you have when you put in the company. You could put in the address of the company, phone number of the company, billed from. Some companies have a different shipping location for whatever reason. And payment settings, you might have an account number with the company. You might have payment terms with the company. Like I said last time, 2%, 10, net 30, which means companies try to give an incentive instead of having to be late in collections. They'll say they'll give you a 2% discount to pay the first 10 days. They get them now. For companies doing a lot of sales, it's actually very costly for the company end, because if they have, let's say, 30 deliveries to one customer, they are losing 2% on every sale, and it keeps on adding up. Not 2%, not 2%. On the other hand, which is, could be they have a credit card, also losing 2-3%. But if they look at it as, you know what, I got it in 10 days, it's money in my pocket. 98% is secure. If I'm gonna give it to them and say, you know what, 30 days or 60 days, then I have to start calling them after 2 months, reminding them where's the money. And maybe you're a company which borrowed money, and your interest rate on borrowing money is more than the 2%. And conversely, sometimes you have customers which you're not going to have a choice, because they are dictating to you what to do. You might have a customer who is selling you a lot of items, or who's buying from you a lot, and say, no, I'll buy from you a lot, but I need you to give me 60 days. Otherwise, I'm going to shop around by other vendors. So maybe to get all that business, it will be worth it for you to give 60 days. Actually, in this case, we're talking about a vendor where you're buying. So you're deciding, am I going to pay him in 60 days? Because, he's not so squeaky, and I could leave him until he calls me. Or you're not paying him at all. It's on consignment. So you're going to leave it there. If you sell it, you pay for it. If you don't sell items, you just give it back. So in this case, we're going to choose net 15. So that's what we have over here. Credit limit. You have to know when you're borrowing from a vendor, if they give you a credit limit, you can't go over that credit because you're gonna make an order, you're not gonna get it. And because some companies, they have an advertising name, they have doing business as a DBA. So you want to put over here what the name of the company is. So here's, in this case, it will be also, you want to check to say Nasharia or Nasharia Inc., because that's what it wants, but you know them as Nasharia. So when the vendor name, you're going to see in the drop-down window of vendors, what are the names of your vendors? And these could be any names you assign to them. But the name you put over here, that's going to show up on the check. That's what he needs to have. Banks are being more secure today. They're being more difficult with third-party checks. They want checks written out to the name of the account. So if the name of the account is Nasharia Inc., then you have to write a check to Nasharia Inc. Probably Inc. you could drop out. But I've had cases where, you go to the bank and the company and the bank has 2 or 3 names and the check only says 1. They say, well, maybe this is a different company. They don't want to take the check. Though mobile deposits a lot of times get you by that, at least for the time being. Then vendor tax ID number. Now, the law is, again, if you are paying someone over $600 for labor, you have to give him a 1099. Doesn't make a difference if he's an individual or he's a LLC. You would have to give a 1099. Corporations you do not issue them a 1099. That's for labor. For product, it's $5,000. There are 1099 drop downs for that. So when you issue a 1099, you have to have in file what's the vendor tax ID number. The best time to get that vendor tax ID number is when you're making an order, because he wants your business at this time. So when you put in the order, tell him, or he's coming for a job, and you're going to estimate it's more than $600. Okay, say I need your tax ID number. He understands you want it because you have to issue him a 1099 at the end of the year. After you go 4 months down the road and you're chasing him for his tax ID number, it might be more difficult to get it. He's busy all of a sudden, or if it's not for business, he's not available. And there are different expense accounts, and we're gonna get to that. Here's one place where you could choose. So we said we're not Sharia. We're the company we're buying is not Sharia. We're buying food for the cafeteria. This will be some type of food expense. Now, if you look down, we have meals and entertainment. So we're gonna choose for now meals and entertainment. And QuickBooks is smart. And it knows next time you're gonna enter a bill from Nasharia, automatically it's gonna choose the meals and entertainment, and it's gonna note to assign that bill to meals and entertainment. Therefore, when you make your report at the end of the year, profit and loss, all the charges and bills that came from Nasharia are automatically gonna be put into meals and entertainment. You don't have to go by yourself manually. These are also one of the things that QuickBooks makes you decide when you enter it. You have to either choose anything in the drop-down, you choose an account. At the very least, you're going to choose Ask My Accountant. If you're undecided what it really is, you can ask my accountant. Otherwise, but you're going to choose something. It's an expense, and it's Ask My Accountant. At the end of the year, when you make a report, when the accountant reviews if any of the expenses in a certain category look unusually large, you could double click on it and it'll give a breakdown what was there, and you'll see perhaps there were some bills that were assigned the wrong account and that to be reclassified. We're going to talk about reclassification another time, which is evidently one of the great features of accountant software and not in the regular software. You could reclassify whole, like 100 transactions in one shot. You can always reclassify one transaction at a time in regular software. That's very tedious. And if you don't have that software, you'll have to make one of those journal entries which we discussed to adjust the whole account. But if you're not sure, just put it in Ask My Accountant, and better put it in Ask My Accountant, where you group together all the things you're not sure than just assigning different expenses which don't belong. And later on, we have to spend time sifting through them and reassigning them the correct classification. In this case, we did decide that it's going to be meals and entertainment. Incidentally, as of 2018, entertainment is no longer an expense. Meals is an expense, is a partial expense, but we are doing accounting now, not tax preparation. So we're going to put in it as save it. So now I just saved this. I put in the date of 5/3 because that was my last entry, 5/3, even though today was 5/6. For next class, I'm going to give you a couple very handy shortcuts for dates because QuickBooks, you do not have to, it always assumes you're in the current year when you're entering a date. So if I would have just done 05, 06, and I press tab, automatically it's going to fill in the current year. If you need a different year, then you would have to enter the year, and you could do it by 2 digits also. So if I would do 05, 06, 19, it's going to know that's 2019. That is regarding entering the date. Now, a lot of times, usually QuickBooks remembers the last transaction you were in. So you get a bunch of bills. Some people are in the habit of entering the bills and when they open up on the desk. Some of them go back and they put in the date when the vendor put it, but in all cases, it should be in the same tax year. One of the shortcuts to go to today's date is to press the letter T. So let's say the last transaction was 04, 10, 20. That's what I was here. And I closed it. And nothing really happened. If I'm going to start again, let's say a bill, it's going to pull up 5/3. Well, I'm trying to see why it shows 5/3 for an invoice. But it's the wrong date. If I press the letter T, T standing for today, all of a sudden it's going to change it to 5/6. It's a very useful shortcut. When you enter the letter T, it's going to bring you directly to today. People that have to enter a lot of information, a lot of bills, and they go back and forth and they come back, what put in today, they put in the letter T and it comes to today. So far we did one bill. We entered in a Nasharia for $50. And if I would make a profit report right now for this year, we had zero income, but we have expenses of let's say $135 we did last time. Let's put the accrual basis. It's not confusing here. We have this is in May. Let's look for the whole year. Meals and entertainment is 0. Let's see, why is meals and entertainment 0? Put in the bill for $50. Okay, evidently I did not save it. So you save the $50 bill. Now it's going to refresh. We have here meals and entertainment is $50. If you look at the general report of the year, we have here $50 of expensive meals and entertainment. If you recall last time, we had a water bill, we paid 2 months. And if you open it up, you double click, we had the water bill of $125, and then we added another $10, and the total is $135. Now we want to bill a customer. So like I said before, there were 3 ways to do things. So the first way was, I'm on the home page. We have vendors, we enter a bill, we pay a bill, and they're customers. So I could go for a customer to sales order. Someone wants something, so I'm going to create a sales order. I'm going to make an estimate. Or in this case, for now, I'm just going to create an invoice, just to show an example. Create invoice, which if you do Control-I, will do the same thing. It'll create an invoice. So I just did Control-I, or I could have clicked on it. I don't know if you would know the difference. We have no customers. And for some reason, the default date here is 5/3. I'm going to troubleshoot that, but right for now, I'm going to enter T, and I'm going to put it back to today's date. So I'm going to choose a customer. His name is, I think I create a customer called Chaim Yankel. But Chaim Yankel didn't do anything. He has bill and term enforced. Yeah, okay. We're gonna ignore that for now. Okay. Now, what we just sell things, so we could sell something that has one item, has two items. The way QuickBooks works with item codes. And yeah, I'll play with what I have over here. We're a consulting company, and the consulting company came and is going to charge money for helping us out, but are they really working? So I put in over here one quantity of I put in daydreaming. Seems like we charge $100 an hour for daydreaming. We got to get a little humor going here. So his bill is going to be $100, and it's over here. What's his address? So his address is going to be 321 King Street, and I have to find the city. But this is an example you'll put in. You could type it right over here in bill 2. And this is where I'm billing the customer. So again, Chaim Yankel is the unlucky customer. We are the company, Zoom Consulting. We're billing him an hour for daydreaming. And we believe he lives on King Street and he's going to overlook, he's a rich person. He's not going to look at the line item. He's going to get this, and he has someone else getting his bills anyway. We're not shipping an item actually, so we're not going to ship right now. He's invoice number 1. When you do in the invoice, you have several entries over here. So I don't want to get too technical right now because you don't have the software. But all I'm going to do is we have here that we took care of it on this date. And this is had we shipped it, but we did not ship it. This rep is if someone sold it, you want to filter which salespeople got the job. You would add reps over here, add new. And these are the terms. And this person we wanted to pay on receipt. We don't want to wait. We billed him an hour of daydreaming, and we're hoping that he's going to send out the money tomorrow. And I'm going to save and close this right now. We changed his building address and we changed the terms. Good. Now, if I'll go back to my report from P&L, it's going to look different now. Now I'm going to have income, consulting income, $100. You could double click on it and it'll show you that the customer is Chaim Yankel. For us from today, we billed him $100. But for this year, we are still down. We're negative $85 because we have to pay for, we came into our office and we had coffee and we had cookies from Nashabia for $50, and we had to pay for the water because, we were running the sink and we were filtering the water or whatever we were doing in the office. $135, but we're going to bill some more people and we will get some more money. So this is way number 1 is from homepage. One second, let's go back to home. Now, the second way to go to customers is go to Customer Center. Customer Center is Chaim Yankel. In just a moment or two, I'm going to take a look at questions and answers, but I'm finishing up. So we could go to customers and invoices from the home menu, or from the drop down from customers, Customer Center, here's Chaim Yankel. And we see over here is an invoice for $100. And if I would want to add another invoice, I could either right click and I go down to create an invoice, or I would create an invoice, and because I'll get the same screen as if I went from homepage by clicking, by shortcut Control-I, or by right clicking the customer over here. I'm not saving the transaction. So I just showed you 3 ways to create an invoice, either by going into Customer Center and choosing a particular customer. And if there were more customers, you go down and you would right click it. And you go to create an invoice. You would have gone to the home page, which I minimize now, and we're going to find the home page. Second home. Or I'm going to go Control-I which is create an invoice, and then I could drop down in this menu, which will also, in this case, if there's more customers, it'll give me the drop down. When there's many customers and it fills up the whole screen, you can scroll down, or you could type just the first letter and it's going to go straight to Yankel. If I had 70 Y's, I will just press YA or whatever I'll do, and I'll go directly to Yankel. And then if there were 3 Yankels by last name, one was Chaim, one was Mesha, so I'll type in YAN, which would bring me only Yankel, and I'll choose which first person. Let me take a pause over here and see if there are questions that need to be answered. It's possible that QuickBooks is still downloading. I hope it's done by now. Yes. A very interesting thing. Sometimes you can have a customer and a vendor doing different opposite roles. There could be one of your vendors you buy one item from, but there are things that they buy from you. So you cannot enter the same exact name, same exact spelling in vendors and customers. QuickBooks needs to differentiate between a customer and a vendor. There are 2 ways to do it. Some people elect to make a typographical change, like have whatever is bought from him as a purchase. So if I would have Yankel Chaim as a customer, they would have Yankel Chaim and a dot, or Chaim with a period, or Yankel Chaim taking out the comma, because vendors, when you write a check, for example, usually you write it out as it says. You can write Yankel Chaim as the name. Sometimes you want to track customers by the last name, so Yankel is the last name, and Chaim. So really, you want to show up on the when you build to, it's showing up as Chaim Yankel, but as a customer, you save them as Yankel Chaim because you want to remember how to find them alphabetically. So that's one way. The other option is really you could have this vendor, everything assigned to the same place. If you have Nasharia that you bought Nash from, but you're selling consulting, and Nasharia wants you to consult them. So I could also create an invoice, theoretically. Actually, in Invoices, you have to choose a customer. If you're going through journal entries, then you could do it. But if you're doing for invoicing, I would have to do something. I would have to give Nasharia another name if I was selling them consulting services. That answers that question, I believe. I could. I think that was answered already. So shipping is definitely an expense. Again, anything which is tax related is not important right now when do the paperwork. That we'll get to it. Either I don't even know it's necessary for the course, but we can get that information another time. Right now we're focusing on the software and collecting the information you need. You will need an EIN from a vendor. You will need a social security if they're working on their sole proprietorship. How do you know if the vendor is buying or from you or you're buying from them? I would hope to know. If they send you a bill, usually it's because you're buying from them. You wouldn't want them to send you a bill for something they are buying from you. That wouldn't quite work. Now, regarding shipping and expense, I think we answered that. We said there are different types of expenses. There is cost of goods, which when you're selling items, and then you have other expenses where you're selling, where you're shipping postage. So, for example, we'll get to the merchandising business, but if you are a post office, like a drop-off center, and you're selling postage, then your postage that you sell is the cost of goods. you might buy postage for 40 cents and sell it for 50 cents. So your cost of goods is 40 cents and you sold it for 50 and you made 10 cents. You wouldn't have your shipping expense 40 cents. You would have your cost of goods for 40 cents. I think regardless what type of version you did it, the license might adjust it as you put it in. It will know what to do. Yeah, regarding invoices being for donation receipts, there's actually over here templates over here. Cancel this, clear. You have templates. Am I an attorney's invoice? Am I a fixed fee invoice? Am I professional? Is it from a proposal? So you could give it whatever name you want. In the nonprofit version, they'll just call your sales as donations or pledges. If it's the pledges are non-received and the donations is when it's received. Right here, you got it right here. So Intuit standard pledge. This would be your someone gave you a pledge, and you could make up also codes to shortcut it. You know, someone's pledging you to Daydream for $100. That's not going to help you, but it will help you actually if you don't have enough staff to build Chaim Yankel for daydreaming. So you could people could volunteer their time, and they could daydream for you, and then you have a pledge of the time and services. How to create what? So again, we said we're gonna start off with a service company, and then later on go to a merchandising company. I will spend like 2 to 3 classes just on services. So what do we sell? We sell again. We have the chart of accounts. Chart of accounts. I just show you how I got there from list of chart of accounts. Or if I wasn't here, I would go Control A. Control A will get me to chart of accounts. As I said, there's many ways to get there. And this is the hierarchy. We said we have fixed assets. And again, the top of the line goes bank. That's most liquid. Receivables are next. Then goes fixed assets. Those are the assets. Then goes the account payable. Those are liabilities. Then goes owner's equity, which are changed by income and expenses. So we're going to get back to chart of accounts. I'm going to go for a second to the items that we sell. This is our services. In the store, items will be product. This is our services. So just to get something rolling, I put an item of daydreaming. But let's say I'm going to make a new item called a service. You could choose as a service. Is it a part which is not inventory? Is it other charge? And sometimes it will be inventory. So now we're going to give it a code. The reason why I give it a code is because you're not going to type out the whole thing. I'm going to put in Tech 1. Tech 1 is one-on-one tech support. And, just like, some companies have one price for web design, one price for emergency services. If you want a rush job, it's going to cost more. So we're going to create services which are regular. Tech 1 will be on the regular case. A sub item of, it's an account, it's not daydreaming. Item name, so I don't want it to be a sub item, it's an item for itself. And I'm going to choose an account, and it's an income account. It's consulting income. We said that we're a service, we can have 4 types of income, and there could be more types of income. We said we could be selling computers, that's the hardware. We could have software for computers, support and maintenance, and consulting. So consulting might be someone coming to my office or calling me up on the phone and just want to consult, information. And support and maintenance is when they're having trouble. They're calling me up and, maybe I could log into his computer remotely and give him support, or I come down, I do maintenance. So then I'm going down to him and I'm doing labor. It wouldn't be called consulting because it's not just conversational. I'm actually doing maintenance. In this case, consulting, tech support. Okay, we said it's tech support, so we'll consider support and maintenance. What rate are we going to charge? We're going to charge $75 an hour. And I'm giving a description here. I moved over to the left side. regular tech support by phone. There are some people that have, if they have to go down to client because that they don't get it, they might charge for travel, something, maybe yes, maybe no. That's whatever you negotiate. So we have here, again, regular tech support by phone. I have Tech One, and this is my sales and support income. I'll check hands raised in about 5 minutes. So now I have, besides the daydreaming, I have Tech One. I'm gonna do one more item, item list. And it's gonna come up, where's this here, item list. Oh yeah, I'm already in it. So now I'm gonna go Control N. Again, not always the mouse in QuickBooks is the fastest way. You're gonna learn that. I'm just showing you how I get there. You went to item and you went up to new. But if I'll just go Control N, it will bring me the service, which I'm gonna do Tech 2. Tech 2 is, we'll give a description. This is, see, Tech 1, probably I could schedule at my leisure. And Tech 2 is, let's say I'm doing, I'll assume, let's say I'm doing it overtime. So it's emergency support after hours. And if you want to charge time, and if your policy is for employees, you pay a time and a half. Actually, well, no, actually, no, this is in case people mind, I'll take this out. If it's time and a half, you're not worse than your own employee. So what's a time and a half in this case? Well, if regular is $75, I'm going to go, I said anywhere in QuickBooks, we could use a calculator. So I'm going to go times 1.5, $112.50. That, you know, you could give a discount, but you could tell them, you know, I'm working overtime. I should be charging you $112.50 for this hour of support. And again, this is support and maintenance. So we just made a second entry. We went to lists. We added Tech 2 emergency support after hours. He doesn't want to wait till 9 a.m. He wants you to come down right now at 9 o'clock at night. And now, let's say we have one, we're going to add one more customer. I'm going to bill him an hour of regular tech support, but then we went overtime. So we told him, you called me at 7 o'clock, I come over. If I do it by 8:30, fine. If it runs after 9 o'clock, I will have to charge overtime. So Chaim Yankel says, no problem. So now we're honest. We're not going to charge him for daydreaming. We're going to charge him 1 hour of, it came at 7 o'clock, so we did 2 hours of Tech 1, which was regular, and here it's going to bring in, the description is going to show up over here, so he'll see what it's being charged for. What we created in item list, we created the item code, so we just put in Tech 1, it's a service, and we gave the description regular tech support by phone. 2 hours is 75, it computes it for us, it's 150. But we worked from 7 o'clock till 10 o'clock, so now I have to charge him for 1 hour of Tech 2. And now we have $112.50. His total bill for this is $262.50. So his bill is $262.50. I'm going to save and close it. And Baruch Hashem, we go to our reports. If I would ever look at my P&L, we have here, we're now in the clear because we made $362 of consulting income, which is daydreaming, and sales support income for $262, and our bills are only $177. Let me show one last item here. What happens if we have charata, we have regret, and we say, you know what, let's not charge them for daydreaming. So you have two options. You can either go back to your customer center here, and you go to this invoice, and you right-click it. Actually, you can right-click it, it will be the edit and transaction, or you double-click it, whichever is easier for you. You would go to edit, and you would void you could either delete the invoice or void the invoice. The either effect of deleting invoice and voiding invoice is it changes it to 0. But some people recommend to void invoices so you keep the invoice number. There's an invoice number, you created the daydreaming, and you have sequential counting for your invoices. There's no missing numbers. If there's an audit and they say, why did you delete all these invoices? Is perhaps there's income that you're trying to take out that you don't want to show. And that's why there's skipping numbers. When you void invoices, so it's just saying, we have the number, but we're not embarrassed to hide the number. We're just saying that it was an invoice which never really was done, or we wrote it off, however you want to do that. And that's one option. Or you have another option. Instead of writing off the invoice, you're going to tell them, you know what? We don't, then once it's there, we cannot erase it. Like Hashverosh gives a decree, we don't erase a decree. We give a new decree. The decree is that on the next job, we're going to give you a credit. So we're going to go here and create, what is here? Make deposits. We're going to create a credit memo or a refund. So in that case, the invoice is going to stay. We didn't void it. We didn't delete it. We're just going to go back to which was daydreaming. And it's $100. And we just gave him, it shows in the bottom, remaining credit, $100. We're crediting him for that. And we're going to say, either we're going to return or we're going to apply it to the invoice. We'll apply it to the invoice in this case, because that's what we wanted to do. There's one invoice, and QuickBooks automatically decides if there's a matching number, they'll choose it. If there's an invoice for $100 and there's a credit for $100, automatically it puts it to the $100 one. If I would put a memo for $200, it probably would have gone to the 262 one to wipe it off. We'll see it another time. So now the customer is down to 262. That's all he owes. This is one way to see his balance. Yankel Chaim owes us $262.50 because he got a credit memo. So we did not delete, did not void invoice. We gave him a memo. And another way to look for it is we were going to report the customers, and we're going to look under open invoices, and we see Chaim invoice due, because we said it's due on receipt, $262. And if we go, what is that? Will bring us up Chaim Yankel's invoice. You could see the invoice. So we walk through entering a bill from vendor of Nasharia. We entered a customer. We didn't make the customer Chaim Yankel, but we created 2 invoices. One was already there, the daydreaming one. We added tech support. We entered items, and we gave them a credit memo to wipe off the first invoice. Now I'm going to go over to any questions that I have. I see there's some questions, and then we'll go to the raised hands. Okay. Question: if the customer does not pay, well, we'll deal with customers who don't pay another time. Right now, we're just entering, and it's not even 30 days yet, so we don't know what's going to happen. Right now, we're on May 6th. There are questions regarding vendors or parent companies and LLCs. I think this is not important. This is something way beyond what we're discussing right now. If you could bring this up in like 2 weeks from now, we'll see about that. The main screen. Someone asked a question about the main screen. I'm not sure which the main screen they want. So if you could please itemize, are you referring to the home screen that we had before? Okay, if you pay a vendor, okay. Paying a vendor via credit card. When you make the order, how do you enter that? Must you put it in the invoice as well? So we'll also get back to this later on. Once you have software, you'll be able to see what's going on. Usually, I would recommend that if you're paying something right away, you don't have to even bother making the invoice. You just enter it as a purchase. If it was by cash, it would be writing out a check from your checking account. If it's a credit card, you're entering it directly into the credit card register. Or even more so, there are people with this, when you download transactions, for QuickBooks. You go to the bank, whatever bank you have. If you have credit cards, you can have 100 transactions. You could download those transactions as a QBO file. We're going to go through that in a couple of weeks from now. We have to figure out the logistics, but we're going to show you a QBO file to download. I'm going to walk through bringing in bank transactions electronically into QuickBooks. Most likely when you'll be working in an office, you'll have to be doing such things because they have a lot of activity. And, in some cases, in entry level, they might tell you enter off the statements because it's sensitive data. But what is possible is that they won't give you the login to the bank, but the person will download the electronic file, which you will then work with. You'll take the file from the bank that was downloaded and you would import it into QuickBooks. So then it will just go into the credit card. You're not making an invoice. Sometimes you'll make a reference number that you could do to make sure you're not being billed twice for the same thing. But one of the problems people have, and we're gonna get to talk that at length, is when you buy and when you sell, if you enter the bill, you must pay the bill. Don't write out a check blindly to the company because it's going to confuse things. I'll explain to it another time. Same thing when you enter a customer, don't just enter in a payment from the customer into your bank. Receive the payment from the customer and apply it to the bill. When things are done correctly in the beginning, it saves a lot of agony in trying to figure out where we went wrong. QuickBooks itself will remind you when you're entering a payment from a vendor that when you're about to pay a bill to a vendor and there are open bills, because if there's no if there are no open bills, we're going to assume that you're writing out the check directly to the vendor as a purchase. But if there are open bills to a vendor, you have accounts payable, QuickBooks is going to assume that you want to pay the bill before you're going to pay new things. It should give you a pop-up window reminding you go to vendors and pay the bill, because what's going to happen is just like you have a customer center here, you have a vendor center. And if you paid the bill already, here it's going to show 0 because we already paid the water bill at 0. But it's still going to show up under the vendors. If you go to pay bill and vendor, you're still going to have open bill because you never applied it to the bill. So the master ledger is going to tell you you don't owe them anything, but the bills are going to show you outstanding bills. And it gets very confusing. There are ways to correct it by applying credits, which you will learn, but in the beginning, we have to do this the way it's supposed to be. If you enter a bill, you're going to go to vendors and you pay bills. And again, if you had a customer and you had an invoice, then when you go back to Chaim Yankel, for example, you could right-click and you receive the payment. So if you're going to come to his 262, it's going to show you a window. Receive customer payment. It's going to show you his invoice over here. And you're going to click yes. If you do not enter amount received, QuickBooks automatically calculates as the whole invoice. And that's why I filled in 262. I didn't even put in an amount. I had a customer. It knows it's an open invoice. If the customer had to pay me part of it, they will only pay $100. Then it will be the same invoice. 262 is owed. Amount due, again, the original amount is 262. The amount due is still 262. He paid me $100. And it's going to show me the outstanding balance when finished is 162. It will show me that over here, when finished, underpaid 162. Over here also will show me amount due is 262. So I don't know if my screen is in the way here. Amount due is 262. Amount applied is 100. And there's nothing less. So I'm going to save this. We received $100. See? And now correctly, it's going to show here 162. If I would go now, and if I would, okay, that's we'll leave that for now until you have the software. Let's go. That's done. Someone asked the question, if you can you upload photos of invoices or you must enter it manually? Um, if you upload a photo of the invoice, you're not going to have a numerical entry inside the QuickBooks. You might want to upload photos to keep um, backup support. One thing you should know about QuickBooks is that that's just the computing calculations. That is the books where you make reports and it'll show you. But if you have an audit, you can't just say because I say I had $100 in expenses, it means I had it. If there's an audit, you got to show me the $100 expense, because if someone can have $10,000 of income and just write expense, 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 and there's no income and it's tax free. But if there's an audit and you can't justify those expenses, then they're going to disallow those expenses and you're going to pay as if you never had that expense. So no matter how good you have we said the journal ledger in the manual form was the original book of entry. Everything gets posted to the ledger. QuickBooks, for the most part that we're dealing with, is as if we're directly in the ledger. We skip the journal and knows that. But if you would do the company journal entries, make general journal entries, then we are doing journal and it makes the post to the ledger, to the ledger. So that's just combined, but this is all the counting. But even when you make a journal entry in a manual form and you had a diary, you would also have to have backup. Who says you got the invoice? Who says your costs are what you say it is? So you have to keep records of that. Yeah, that's very tedious. It's not always bookkeeping work. Sometimes it's just secretarial work, clerical work, but that is a necessary thing to do for Uncle Stan. Okay, someone has a question about entertainment is not an expense anymore. So again, we're going to differentiate expenses from the company as taxable expenses. You could put in when you do it as entertainment. You can do whatever you want. I'm saying you have to divide the meals and entertainment as from now on as 2 entries. There's no meals and entertainment. There's meals and then there's entertainment. There's 2 separate account expenses. I'm surprised actually that QuickBooks did not separate those accounts into 2 separate things, because entertainment will not, when you give the P&L to the accountant, as far as the books of your company is concerned, yes, you spent that money, you don't have it anymore. But as far as tax purpose is concerned, you're going to pay tax on that money of the entertainment, because you can't just enjoy life and entertain potential clients at the expense of the taxpayers, especially now we gave $3 trillion in stimulus and PPP. We're not going to be able to underwrite all the entertainment. Meals are only 50% deductible because the assumption is you got to eat anyway. Why charge the taxpayers? But because there's a business purpose, every expense needs to be reasonable, and it has to be for a business purpose. Necessary and reasonable is the term. So it can be over extravagant, it can be unnecessary, and it's still only deductible half. We assume if you go, you have to, we're gonna get to record keeping another time, but I believe I answered I read the question about entertainment, and I'm just checking it off now. Yeah, someone said we're jumping around. Okay, someone asked a question, how does QuickBooks know it's by the hour? So we went to what's it called, for example, I'll open up the invoice of Chaim Yankel. We build them 2 tech supports. I decided the tech support is $75 an hour, right? But what happens if it was only 1.5 hours? It would not be 2. The quantity would be 1.5 because it's 1 hour and a half an hour, and then QuickBooks will compute it automatically. It's not 75 times 2, which is 150. It's 75 times 1.5. Similar to what we did, that one emergency support is 1.5 times the regular rate. 1.5 hours times tech support will equal to the same 112.50. I'm not saving the change. I'm just showing you that you're going to decide if, one means an hour of support. You could put in the description that it means regular tech support an hour. You could bill, there are some people that bill in half-hour increments because the average call it might not be a half an hour, it might be, but you could say we have a 15-minute minimum, in which case I'll put if I only did 15 minutes, I'll put 0.25, that's a quarter of an hour, and the hourly rate is $75, the quarter of an hour is $18.75, and that's the base charge. QuickBooks doesn't help you, but later on, once I go to 20 minutes, I'm not charging you for 20 minutes. I did a minimum of 15, even if people think they call up, and this is something which you should know also. I just have a quick question. We're sitting concentrating at an office and work, and you got to tear away from what you're doing because after you ask a quick question, then you got to go and find yourself where you're holding and you lost time. So it's not the 5 minutes on the phone. Now you got to get back to where you were, and that is a lost 10 minutes or whatever it is. So there's a minimum 15 minutes, or I don't know anyone who would charge less than 10 minutes for answering a call. Sometimes it's a package deal when you're when you have a customer and they make several phone calls for quick questions, you don't charge them separately. But you have a company where people just do a personal tax return and it's done, and then they call you up and they have many other questions, so you need a separate consultation fee for it. Anyway, if you have 20 minutes, I decided I'm not charging a third of an hour. I'm going to charge now 20 minutes is automatically rounded up to half an hour, and now it's 0.5 of an hour. It's a half an hour, $37. Anyway, that is, again, what I'm answering that was related to the invoices which we put in. That was done. Debits and credits come into place. So far, it's simple. Okay, so now this will help us understand the credits. If you recall, we said an asset increases with a debit and liability or owner's equity increases with a credit. So now let's say I have here, what would you call this $100? Okay, in this case, it was the $262. I'm going to do Control Y. You're not going to see, but we'll do it next time. Control Y is going to bring up the debit and credits. You see here, debits and credits. Accounts receivable is an asset. It's a debit of $262 because I didn't get the cash. I only billed them, but it's collectible. My owner's equity, or in this case, my income, is a credit that goes up, and it gives you the breakdown. This is what I told you before is a compound entry. There's one entry of receivables because only one customer. One customer is being billed $262, but we have two separate income items which are bringing up the credit. We have $150, $112, and as you see, they have to match, they have to balance. They both total $262. So this debit and credit entry is done automatically by QuickBooks. All you saw was we made an invoice and we made a bill and we have to collect it. But really, this is what's behind it. This is the debits and the credits, the core of QuickBooks. This is, even if I went to the profit or loss, which we had before, you see 262. If I would double click on it, you will see right away a debit and a credit. There are no, this is in receivables. In this case, reason why it's only showing one line debit and credit is because we are looking only at the income line, right? Even though the source is account receivables, but what are we looking at? We are looking at our income. Income in of itself is one side of the equation. One side of the equation is owner's equity or income. They both go up with the credit. So the 262 is going to go up. It's only going to show me credit, 262. Conversely, in the expenses, I click on the 50, meals and entertainment and Asheria. it should only show me a debit. And here it goes, because expenses increase with a debit. It's one line item. But if I would go Control Y over here, then it'll bring me both sides of the equation. I have my meals and entertainment expense is the debit, and accounts payable is the credit of $50. And this is where you see the beauty, how everything ties in together, the debits and the credits. And QuickBooks want to make everything simplified, but this is what's really happening. It's all about the debits and the credits. And when you understand that, when it's automatic, then when you go to do the journal entries, and you're going to ask me not to why we have to do journal entries, we'll talk about another time. You're going to come to journal entries, and you're going to have to choose an account, and you have to choose a debit, and you have to choose a corresponding credit. And you'll have to choose names. If it's account receivables, if it's a customer, it will be account receivables. If it's a payables, it'll be a vendor. If there's an employee shlemazel in your company, you have to decide what it's for. But we're not holding there yet, because we have to wait until you have the software. You'll get comfortable with debits and credits. But I'm introducing you to the world of debits and credits, that's what QuickBooks keeps track, and they do it automatically for you. I think this actually brought to life. Thank you very much for alerting me to the example. How did debits and credits come in? This was answered live. Home screen. Let me exit everything here. Closing all the screens. And view windows. I'll show you. By default, you go now. Oh, one last thing. Wherever you left off in QuickBooks, that's where it brings you back. So when I came in, I was already in. I came to chart of accounts because that's where I was. I was in chart of accounts. On the spot. I'll have to double check again how to get to the home screen right away. Here, home page, company home page. This is where you go there. So again, to summarize the 3 ways how to do transactions, you go to vendors or customers or by home screen. Again, company home screen. Why would you go to company home screen to go to a customer if you just go directly to the customer center? I don't need to go company homepage, get here, and then go to my customer. I'll go directly to customer center. And again, the shortcut, until I get my mouse and I scroll up, if I know it's an invoice, all I got to do is Control I, and I'm in my invoice. If I know it's a bill, so what is the shortcut for it? Here, 1 second. No transaction receiving. Even tells you create invoices, Control I, that's a shortcut. So once you have a shortcut, why would you ever take your mouse again and do it? But some people do it. So I'm not going to decide for you what is the most convenient way for you. That you'll decide with time. Vendor center enter bills, they didn't show you a shortcut, but you could do Alt will highlight the top. Look at the Alt button highlights the top. By vendors, you go O, and then you go P. It's going to bring you in, but that's really much to pay bills. For vendors out faster, just go directly to the vendors and pay the bill, and that's done. Okay, let me go back to questions. For those who want to stay around, I'll be available till 10:15, answering some of the questions that are available. We got a little later start with the downloading, and we want to be able to make sure everyone, at least whoever asked the question today, we'll go to. When I finish the Q&A, I will go over to the hands raised, because that I am assuming the originally chats were for people communicating between themselves. Maybe some people have a question which the attendees themselves can answer, and if it's simple enough, hopefully they're giving correct information. So answer live, this we did, and I believe we did the home screen. Debit and credit rules. I'm not sure. You could look at the debit credit rules again on the slide. I just brought to you in QuickBooks. I brought to you in several examples. I brought to life the debits and credits. I'll show you one more time debit credits. Actually, the credit memo will be interesting, Because here it's going to be the reverse. Income goes down and receivables goes up. So here, control Y. What is the debit and entry level? Here, accounts receivable is credited. I am reducing my accounts receivables by $100, and I am reducing my income by $100 because of the credit memo. So when I made the bill, the 262 was a debit receivable because I increased my asset, and was a 262 credit on the income because I increased my income. When I gave the memo, it's the reverse. The $100 is crediting my asset, and the $100, and it decreases my income. It debits my owner's equity. That's really what it does. So I showed you both ways how the credit, and you could also, once you have the software, you could create your own private company. You could enter practice transactions. Someone asked me a question, if they have already a software, they already enter transactions, it doesn't make a difference. The software is a program. But now you could use it for 10 different companies. You're going to create a company in class, and we're going to work with that. Okay, let me see what I'm answering here. What's the difference between invoice and sales receipts? Sales receipts is when I sell something right away. So when I sell something on the spot, someone walks in and there's nothing, any paid, whether a check, a credit card. So it's a receipt that the sale was done, and it will go automatically into the income section. An invoice is when he buys it on credit. So you make an invoice, or else how are you ever going to collect from him? As far as your books are concerned, you already received the money. That wouldn't be a good thing to do, to enter a sales receipt when it's supposed to be a receivable. Entering an invoice is technically a bill for someone to pay you something, right? Yes, so we just answered that. Someone said on Monday we would email to us. I'm not sure what I said I would email. The slides were emailed today by Rabbi Wordy from the debits and credits slides. I got a copy of it, so I know it's on the email. If you didn't, you can email me after class and we'll send you those slides. And hopefully between tomorrow and Friday, we'll get you your license codes for the software. Vendors and customers. Someone asked a question about vendors and customers. Please, I'm not sure what the question is. Here's vendors, here's customers. I would go to the company homepage. I would get, again, the whole vendor. This is vendors. I enter a bill. This is where I pay the bill. And this is the customers. This is where I enter an invoice. That's where I receive payments. I'm focusing on the center now. Vendors enter bill, customers create invoice, pay bill, receive payments. Let me keep running through questions. Are vendors and customers strictly different categories, meaning when vendors purchase from you, they're considered a customer? So that's what I said before. You could use the name is a category usually where you do most business with him. If you're usually buying from him, he's a vendor. That vendor could be buying from you. If I created an invoice, let's see, in a journal entry, you could use the vendor as a customer. You can enter that the vendor owes you money. If I'm creating invoices, it's only to pull in from the vendor list I showed you. If I went to Control I, all it's letting me pull down is customer jobs. The invoices are for customers. However, if I was doing a journal entry, theoretically, I could go and making a journal entry. I could theoretically enter a bill for saying daydreaming. That's or what it was. Just tech support is support and maintenance, and I'm going to charge $100. Actually, in this case, sales is a credit. Sales go up, and it's account receivables. I'm doing account receivables. So this is how I'm doing the entry. I'm debiting an asset, account receivables. I'm making a sale for $100, and here I could choose who's my receivable. I could choose Nasharia. Yes, I can. So, and if I choose a customer when using the account receivable. No, so again, so the answer is you will have to, if you were selling to Nasharia, you'll choose a name for Nasharia. So the name is here, but QuickBooks doesn't like you to mix up. If it's account receivables, it's Nasharia. So customers are for sales and vendors are for purchases. Okay, let's go back to the questions. Done. This is done. When you create an invoice, can you set a reminder to look up updates of what's going on with an invoice? So there are aging accounts. We're going to learn about how to get reports if a customer is owing you 10. If you have the option of 10 days, but that's one day. Don't count that before they're hatched. If you're giving customers 2% discounts if they pay you in 10 days, don't count like you have all the full money, because maybe you'll be lucky enough that all your customers will pay you and your income would be 2% down for a year. It would be great because you have no, you have no delinquents, but don't count all the money. But that will make adjustment later on when they pay you. But you could have aging at intervals, 30 days intervals, 60 days intervals, whatever you choose. Okay, I was just told there's an echo. And yeah, there was a second device on. I was just I turned it off now. I was trying to see how big of the screen blows up. I apologize if there was disturbing the class. Why does the payment go to undeposited funds? Very good question. Why did the payment go to undeposited funds? I didn't mention that, so we'll discuss this in a different class. In general, people who know a little bit more about QuickBooks, we're going to assume this course is eventually become very well versed in QuickBooks, but we're assuming it's for beginners. And when it progresses, we have to assume we're going from Olives or ABC, and we have to introduce things as we got to them. When someone pays you, the money is in your pocket. It's not in the bank, so it's undeposited. It's not in the bank. And QuickBooks works exactly the same way. It's undeposited, but we're gonna deal with it in the future classes. Where it says undeposited, how would you change it to reflect when we actually deposit? That's the same question. Is paying for rent for office space to landlord and consider vendor 100%. Anyone that you're paying for a service is a vendor. That's what we said. They send you a bill. It doesn't make a difference if they invoice you or pay it right away. If you get a bill and you're waiting 10 days or you're waiting some time, you want to remember to pay because you want to be a digital office. So you get the bill, you enter it in. I'll pay it in 2 weeks. Not a problem. So then you have to remember to go to the vendor and pay bills, but it is an expense. And he is a vendor. Income amounts are part of owner's equity. Yes, it is. Who adjusts the tax deductible cost? That is when at the end of the year you have P&L, you deal with an accountant. I'm kind of confused about the debits and the credits. The last part you showed us. Again, if you take the slides that I showed you, that I sent to you when you review them 2, 3 times, and you're going to follow along when we do the Control Y entries, you'll be able to see how every entry we do matches and plugs into that chart. Question: can you tell us about integration? I'm not sure what integration you mean. If you're talking about bringing in bank transactions electronically, so please post it again. Try to clarify. Thank you for an informative class. I'm trying to. How can we press Control if we want something? How can we press Control I if we want something specific? No, Control I is for invoice when you're in QuickBooks. Doesn't make a difference which screen you were in. If you were in a report, you were in banking or employees. Control I is an invoice. If you want something specific, please identify what specific you mean. people are asking for homework. Homework for now is to review the debits and credits after you actually have the software. I could potentially give you 5 to 10 transactions to enter between classes. But for now, we got to review debits and credits. QuickBooks Pro is good, doesn't have a classification option. Again, this is a general question for, if this is the software you have and you paid for, use it. And reclassifying can be done in bulk by an accountant. Sometimes people email us our files, and when we prepare the returns, we reclassify. But that only helps for that current year. On our end, it's not going to change what you have by you. When do you use a journal entry? When I tell you in class number 3, perhaps. Right now, I just showed you that general entry is where you put manual debits and credits. Otherwise, QuickBooks does all is doing all the debits and credits automatically for you. For a sale that you got paid COD, wouldn't you create an invoice to have a record of how you made the money? You don't have to create an invoice if you get paid COD. We'll discuss it in a future class. In QuickBooks, do you ever create things directly in Journal? Yes, you do. That's why they have to make journal entries. We're not going to deal with journals until at least the 3rd class, maybe the 4th class. I just realized the 3rd class is really next time, so either the 4th or 5th class. The day start from the time they purchased or 12 a.m. regardless of when they pay. A sale, okay, so we're going to deal with how you calculate the income. Which day do you calculate it? The day they make their order or the day they make the payment? There's cash basis and accrual basis. We'll be learning that down the road. And that makes a world of a difference for tax purposes. You could have $100,000 of unpaid invoices, but if you're on an accrual basis, you will pay tax on that $100,000. But likewise, you get $100,000 of unpaid expenses, and that will reduce your income by $100,000. So it's a trade-off. People have to decide if they want cash basis or accrual basis. But regardless, everything goes from 12 a.m. That starts a new day. Regards to 30, net 30, I'm not sure what the question was. If that's a continuation of when the day starts. The day you enter the invoice, it's going to calculate by day. It doesn't go by time. So it could be 11:59, you enter on one day, 12:01 on day 30, it's due. But again, anytime that day, you're not having a clock in QuickBooks. So when I ask the question on the homepage, there's a bunch of arrows. Well, it's a simple diagram, but we'll get to it another time. But just suffice that pay bills comes after you enter the bills. So if you look at vendors, the flow chart is that you enter a bill and then you pay a bill and you work yourself backwards. And so this question again, wouldn't income accounts be part of assets? Look again at the second slide. I explained that Assets is what the company owns. So what the company owns is the account receivable or the cash of the sale, but there has to be a credit to match that debit. So the if the debit is cash or accounts receivables on a sale, the matching credit will be income. Income is brings the owner's equity up. They're asking about the few shortcuts. Next class, we're gonna review shortcuts once we have software. There are shortcuts for months, for years, for days, for making invoices, and the chart of accounts, writing checks. But right now, I don't expect you to remember it without even trying to do it. The next class is Monday, 8 p.m. Okay, if you have software from a college already, or if you're registered with the college, you can go, the same link. Actually, there's a link where you could go and register yourself and get your own license from the college you're registered to. So if someone could email me, I'll give them the link. If you know the program, can you figure out another version a year? Most of the items are the same from program to program, especially if it's only 1 or 2 years apart. They always try to add some features. They have companies that always feel they have to have the latest gadgets and the fastest computers. They have to have the most updated software as well. Or companies starting out will just buy the latest software, but it could be much cheaper just to buy a year or two before. It's perfectly fine, and you could figure out. Debits and credits, I guess say is time. Time will get you more comfortable with it. It's a new topic. It's a new world, and like I said, debits is the left and credits is the right. But who goes to the left and who goes to the right, and it just practice makes perfect. Again, so when you get your license, it's probably someone might have downloaded maybe you actually downloaded Premiere instead of Accountant, but when you put in the license, it might adjust the ability to Accountant version. Will we cover adjusting a balance sheet from years of abuse? Sometimes it helps to start a new company file with, this is beyond the scope of this particular class. We'll deal with it another time. Someone asked the question about cash and accrual. That's what we saw at the top of the P&L that I brought up here, profit and loss. There's accrual over here, there's cash. Cash means what I actually get paid. So what is my income for the year? My income for the year is only $100 because actually it's not even $100. It's $100 actually the credit that we gave someone. Or maybe he paid it. Oh, he did pay us $100. On an accrual basis, my income is $260, $250. Again, accrual is as you earn it, even if you weren't paid, you already earned the income. It's due to you. It's accrued. It's same with expenses. You already earned the expense. You accrued the expense. You could count it in your expenses. Cash is only when you actually paid it out or actually got paid. And those are two acceptable methods of accounting. When companies get larger, then they're required to go over to accrual because that's a more correct way of doing accounting. Integration is import and export from Autotask. Autotask or recording software. I'm not sure what the recording software is, but eventually from bringing in transactions, we'll get to. I said. Done. Can we review how to enter information from merchandise business? that would be class number 7 or 8. Again, even a merchandising business is going to have most of the things that we have in a service business. It's like it's a and $200 you have 100. So all the expenses you're going to have in servicing business, or most of it, you're going to have in the merchandising business. So you are really learning the merchandising business while you're learning the service business. We're just going to build on that knowledge and get to merchandising. So we don't want to get confusing. There's enough going on with debits and credits, and we have to learn how to make entries of adding items of service. And even a merchandising business also can have service items, that we said. In this support business, you could be selling hardware or tech support. So let's hold off on the merchandising business for now. How long did it take me to get comfortable with debits and credits? I plead the fifth. I did not find credit debit slides you showed. Okay, the debit and credit slides that I showed, I actually entered on my slides. It's not, you can't Google those. There are, I mean, you could Google debit and credit slides, but I just, the chart that I gave in color that I took out of the textbook, and the beginning I gave credit to that citation from the company who I borrowed it from. I actually tried to reach out to them to get, yeah, let's move on to that. How can we view the input information for online business selling products? I'm not sure what the question, how to input information for your online business selling products. All the products that you have would go in as items. Every item you sell, similar to you get a catalog from Uline shipping products or any company that have a catalog, those numbers are their items. You always wonder why they have weird numbers, because they have to give a short code for item, and then there's a description what the item is. And again, since you're selling products, you're a merchandising business, so please wait till a few more classes. Again, any version of QuickBooks will work for the class for the most part. Okay, I'm going over to a few more minutes to just check the chats. See, there's huge amount. If I see or actually where the hands were raised. Let's see, where would I find the hand raised? Pause recording. Okay. A second. Waiting for a pop-up to see the participants. No. Where did it go? CNN. Stop recording. I went through pretty much all the questions in the Q&A. I'm looking to find if there's a raised hand, someone has a question. I'm not sure. Done. Someone asked if the customer doesn't pay, it's still revenue. It's revenue an accrual basis if they didn't pay, but when you realize it's being written off, then you take it as a bad debt expense. So it's just everything's a question of timing. The result is going to be the same in a different year or this year. Customer vendors were done. Okay. Software. Windows 10 or 7. I believe Windows 7 is okay. I think email me after class. I'll double check on that. I didn't mean searching. I'm not sure right now where to direct you for more debits and credits. Okay. Last but not least, where's the, maybe someone could post in the Q&A where I could find the hands. I see when the hands pop up and it disappears. I'm not sure what the raised hands are. Or in the webinar chat. Okay, I could stop sharing the screen for now. And I'm still looking for, let's see, where's the raised hands? Okay, if Rob already said version Windows 7 works, then it works. So he already saw that. Can someone post either on chat or on the end that raised hands are participants? Let me look here. Attendees. So I'm by the attendees now. I'm looking to see if the raised hands disappears after a while. I don't see any raised hands here. Okay, so again, if there's any questions I missed out on the chat, repost it in the Q&A because that's where I'm really concentrating on. I'm just trying to, I'm also new to Zoom as an instructor and fielding all the questions from multiple sources. 1 second here. I'd like to thank everyone for participating and looking forward to seeing you next Monday at 8 p.m. Okay. Okay, 1 second. I just saw again raised hand. I popped on it and I don't see where the raised hand is. Could someone raise their hand again one more time? Just so I could grab it when it comes up. What was that name here? Oh, here, I see now. Wait, you have a question? This has been Cian, I guess? Or we're just figuring out. Oh. Okay, fine. At least I see where to find the hands on the right side. But okay, we're ending the meeting now.